Hello, podcast listener. This is your host with the most, JJ, on my quest to meet every single person in the world and have a conversation that's longer than, excuse me, could you hand me that toilet paper? JJ Meets World sets out to right all of the wrongs that exist and get some audio into your ears. This episode features Jessica Hawks, and we get to talk about a passion project of hers, which is a farmstead full of rescue animals and all of the great things that go into that. I have an odd line of questioning, and Tucker and I even decide which character they would be in the immortal Charlotte's Web. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
Things go together that previously did not. Peanut butter and chocolate, tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches, and Tucker Lucas and JJ Gordon. So I was thinking about Tucker a lot as we get into today's episode, which features Jessica Hawks and her farm of rescue animals, and how unlikely it was that you and I would actually become friends, let alone meet each other. So Tucker went to a high school on the north side of town. I went to one on the south side of town. Tucker was in a different grade than I was. And really, if it hadn't been for the both of us going to the same summer theater program, we probably never would have met.
You know, if it hadn't been for Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within, and a hearty breakfast at McDonald's the next day, this podcast may not have happened.
Isn't it interesting how sometimes in life it takes one of those catalyst moments? It takes that sort of serendipity. Is it predestined? Is it luck of the draw? Because if I would have been out of town for Final Fantasy for that camp out, I probably would not have been like, who's this guy with the van? Hello.
Why does it smell like gas in here?
Yeah. Be like, are you sure you want to sleep in this?
Now, what farm animals would you and I be?
Okay. Yeah. So I was thinking about this. So because in this episode, I talk about how, most of my farm knowledge comes from movies, but in Charlotte's Web, a pig and a spider become best friends. And in my fan fiction reworking of Charlotte's Web, lovers, you and I are Charlotte and Wilbur, don't you think?
Oh, which one am I?
Which one do you think you are? And I'll tell you. Actually, on the count of 3, you say pig or spider, and I'll tell you which one I think it is. Okay.
Wait. Are we saying which one I am or which
one you are? Yeah.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Spider.
Spider. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And so you're saying that what this podcast is this is me spinning a web over your resting place once a week. And once the podcast is done, I'm going to die and all of my babies are going to spread out on, except for 3 that are going to stick around.
Silently going and spinning its Tucker's Web. Yeah, I think because here's the deal. You are very thoughtful and your emotions don't guide you in every decision that you make. Pragmatic, I would also include in there. Versus me, I'm like Wilbur, where I'm like, I'm gonna die tonight. Yep, and I let every emotion do my next minute, and I like to bathe in buttermilk.
And I eat bugs, and there's always a string coming out of my butt.
Yep, and I eat out of a trough. I mean, It's the answer is clearly there. So
Yeah.
and we talk about pigs. We talk about pigs, and we talk about all sorts of animals, including miniature ponies in this episode with Jessica Hawks. And hey, also Tucker is including in the write-up for this the information on how you can help Jessica and what's going on out at the Hawks farmstead. And I highly recommend that if you want to give to something animal based, this is a great opportunity for you to be involved in saving some really amazing animals and helping a really amazing person with some passion. So let's get straight into this thing, because I know you guys want to hear about all the animals, and you'll also hear about gooses when they do it.
JJ Meets World.
Jessica Hawks. Doesn't that sound like the world's greatest comic book it's like superhero name?
Jessica Hawks.
Fighting crime.
Yeah.
I love that name. It's just awesome. Welcome to JJ Meets World, Jessica.
Thanks so much for having me, JJ.
So, Jessica, do you go by Jessica? Do you shorten it to Jess? I mean, what's the nickname situation we're working with here?
So it really depends on when in my life you met me. If you met me in
Interesting.
high school or early college, it's Jess, and anything beyond that, like when I went professional, it became Jessica. So I can kind of age people's friendships based on what they call me. So,
Well, little known fact, JJ actually stands for Jessica. So this could get confusing.
But one of them is Jessica with a K, and the other one's Jessica with a Q. So I like to keep it fresh and original. Jessica, let's start this off by just tell us a little bit about yourself.
how do I start? All right. Well, I'm living on my family's homestead farm in the middle of North Dakota, out in the middle of nowhere, actually. And I work days at a law firm, and the rest of the time I spend taking care of about 130 animals out here. So that has become a big part of my who I am now. So I guess I have to start there.
Well, and it's not just the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's New Rockford, right?
It is, yep. And it's, I mean, by any other standard, the middle of nowhere. So like we have 3 cases of COVID-19 so far. That's how remote we are.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
New Rockford, one of the interesting things I have connected to New Rockford is my comedy troupe was out there 3 times in the matter of like 6 months. We performed for a fundraiser for the post prom, and then they raised the money to pay us to bring us back to come to the post prom. And then the Teachers Association had us out as well to perform for them. And one thing that I thought was really cool about that is the numbers of people attending church services in New Rockford was down, but the city banded together to do something with those spaces. And I find that to be just a very cool idea, and something that more rural North Dakota towns should look into, because you've got an instant community space, and you've got something with some unique architecture, and it's not just a Quonset somewhere.
Absolutely. So the 3 that I can think of, one of them has now become our primary stage theater building. That was the old Methodist church. One has become a private residence, and it was actually the guy's family's church that they went to when he was a kid. And then the third one, for about 15, 20 years, I think it's the old Catholic church, has been our senior citizen center. So they've got a thrift store in there. They do lunches and transit and that kind of thing. So
Isn't that neat? What a great repurposing. I also know this fun fact about New Rockford, that they just got a virtual golf course experience at the city golf course. They got a new virtual course setting where you can play famous golf courses any time of the year on a video screen. So
right, which, considering our golfing season is like 2.5 months, it's really a good investment for them.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk farm real quick. Full disclosure, my farm knowledge begins and ends with the movie Son-in-Law. So I'm very limited, and I'm even more so that now that movie's 25 years old, I know that things have changed a lot there. But so there's a lot of animals on your farm. What animals are we talking about?
You know, I should have brought a list. People always ask how many we have, and I've honestly lost count because it changes so quickly. So size-wise, let's see, we've got a horse and a llama and a miniature donkey and 2 miniature horses. And we've got goats and a dog and cats and geese and chickens and kitties and one turkey. Poor thing, just one little turkey. And chinchillas and a crested gecko. And right now there are 14 ducks in my bathtub. So
snap.
It just varies.
So these animals, it doesn't sound like you're necessarily raising them for the purpose of slaughter. Am I correct?
No. You just made me realize I forgot to mention pigs because we've got 3 pigs here too. And that's the first question everybody asks is, when are they ready to eat? Are you kidding me? These are my babies. These are Kevin Bacon and Pinky and Pepper. And they're, nobody here is for eats except the chicken eggs.
My wife grew up, they're on the very outskirts of Hillsboro, North Dakota, and their house borders 3 different farms. And so they had farm animals. They've had pigs and they had turkeys and chickens. And she just, unfortunately, like most of them found tragic ends to their lives, which I think is a real bummer. But she's always kind of pestering me about like, well, when can we get like a farm animal that we can have? And I said, listen, right now we have 2 dogs and there's 2 human beings in the house. I don't like it when the animals outnumber the human beings, because I really took Animal Farm to heart when I read it in high school. And I don't want a rising group of animals to take us over.
For sure. And it's really important to keep them all as happy as we can. So my title at our nonprofit here is Mom. So everybody from the smallest lizard up to the biggest horse sees me and thinks food and love is coming. So that's made a big difference.
And so what is your nonprofit?
It's Hawks Homestead Animal Sanctuary. And we're still in the process. Like our 501 is pending. But we've been operating as a nonprofit now for just over a year.
Yeah, that 501c3 paperwork. Wow. Isn't that a doozy?
It's a beast. And I work for an attorney, and it's still been an issue. So we're working on it.
So what drives you to take care of all of these amazing animals?
I think about this a lot. It started when I was very, very young, and my dad, who was a science teacher, would bring home turtles or snakes or frogs or something, especially if they were injured and needed tending to. So from a very, very young age, I was outnumbered by animals. So that's very usual for me. And also there's this component where I had lived here on the homestead with my mother, and about 4 years ago now, she passed away after a 1.5-year battle with cancer. And at that point, I thought, I'm so used to caregiving. What am I going to do with my time now? What am I going to do with this energy of wanting to take care of something? So this was a natural progression. Started out inheriting the animals that had been here, which were just horses and cats mostly. And then it snowballed. And now we have so many that it is just about a full-time job.
So are you rescuing animals, or are people giving you animals? How does your nonprofit work?
It both, actually. Yep. So we hear frequently of animals that need a home desperately, suddenly, like the ducklings in my bathtub are a great example. 2 nights ago, there was this family swimming at a lake about 45 minutes away, which that's a North Dakota thing, right? We talk about time, not distance. So 45 minutes from here. And they found this mother duck who had died, and they didn't know how. And nearby were these 14 or 12 dozen ducklings just swimming around, completely lost, getting eaten by seagulls. So they didn't know how to take care of them, but they did gather them up into their kayak and bring them to land. And so we ended up by contacting a friend who contacted us. They got them to us. So that's one way that we get animals. But the pigs, for example, one of them was adopted at 5 weeks, and then they were going to raise them in an apartment, which potbelly pigs, you can do that. But unfortunately, her dog disagreed because he smelled too much like bacon. So we ended up taking that pig in just to save his little life. And he's now our greeter here. So
Oh, he's the first one to go out there and like squeal and oink at the new newcomers.
well, and actually anybody. I mean, the UPS drivers all know to bring dog biscuits, and they give him a treat when they give one to the dog.
My wife, they had a pig named Gidget, and Gidget would get to eat the meatballs on Christmas, the like barbecue meatballs in a crock pot. And they had a round crock pot, and Gidget would just put her whole face in there. And so she ended up getting a permanent stain of just a circle around her face from where she had like exactly where she could get into that crock pot. And I really get a kick out of that story about like, okay, so you gave your pig like the leftover meatballs, and I confirmed that they were beef meatballs.
Thank you. Yep.
Which, even still, like, pigs are used to a more vegetarian diet. Am I not mistaken on that?
They will eat anything. Absolutely. Mine really like leftover chicken, which is always very unsettling. But to be fair, the chickens like leftover beef. So it's kind of a really weird circle of life thing. But
so here's my biggest question. What animal have you not cared for yet that is on the list of animals that if they were someone to drop it off one day, you would be ecstatic?
Oh my goodness. There are actually a couple of them. And up until a week ago, miniature donkey was at the top of the list. But we found one that needed a home. And for my birthday, my brother and my nieces covered the cost of bringing him here. So I got my miniature donkey. Yes. And his name, of course, JJ, you're going to love this, is Don Quixote.
Nice.
Yes.
I love that. That's awesome.
So we call him Odie for short, but he's Quixote. And he's just been an awesome addition. So now that one is off the list, our other top wish list animals are a miniature Highland cow, one of those real shaggy ones with the long horns, a peacock. We've never had a peacock. And, I would really like it if we could get pheasants to stick around. We've had pheasants before, but they go off and do pheasant things. So if we could get a pheasant that would hang out with us, we would really like that too.
I recently was FaceTiming with a friend of mine who was in the midst of walking his dog in Austin, Texas. And he's like, yeah, Austin has just a ton of free roaming peacocks. And they're is it the male or the female that has the plumage for peacocks?
That's the male. Yep.
That's the male. Mm-hmm. And so he was saying like, yeah, they're all over the place. You'll look out a window and there'll be like 6 of them keeping people from getting to their cars. And,
yep.
So a peacock, huh? That's an interesting thing. I mean, they're beautiful. I remember at the Duluth Zoo, they had peacocks that were free roaming, and one of them took a hot dog bun from my sister. Is a very harrowing moment in the Gordon family history books.
I'm sure. Yeah, birds have so much attitude. Unless you're around them a lot, it's just these weird aggressive moments like that. You don't see that she was probably thinking about it for half an hour before she came over and stole it.
We all think of cats as being these sort of meh and attitude-filled animals, and they are. But you're right. Birds, oh man, birds have got attitude.
They do, and they start from the day they hatch. So we've got these 7 chicks that have been hatched. We have an incubator where we've been hatching some of our own because it is the middle of North Dakota. Once again, we have predators. We do lose chickens and ducks over the winter, usually to foxes or raccoons or coyotes. But so we're trying to refill our chicken flock. And one of them was born fighting with me, which his father is the same way. He's got this attitude of he's the smallest chicken that we own just about. He's the size of a 20-liter a soda bottle, basically.
So he's the Danny DeVito of chickens.
He is, and we named him McMurray because of his attitude. Because
nice.
he has to go out and try to beat the shit out of everybody, mostly me. So I'm out there in my muck boots, and he's picking fights with me, picking up my kneecaps and things. So, and this baby has to be his because he came out of the shell doing the exact same thing. And
how do you think you do with remembering the names of the animals? Pretty well.
People are always amazed. Yeah, I do pretty well. The only ones who don't have names are all the chickens that look like each other. They all look very, very similar. But if there's anything distinguishable, I can usually name them and keep them that way. So they kind of name themselves. It's all a matter of personality or puns, of course, because like our llama is Salvador Dali Llama, which is a double pun.
Nice. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Our baby goat was Vincent van Gogh. And then
These are perfect.
thank you. And like I said, our favorite pig, our really everybody's favorite pig is Kevin Bacon.
I was going to guess Picasso.
That'll be the next one because I know there's more pigs coming.
I love to give people nicknames, and so I imagine like I would love the ability to give nicknames to dogs and cats and pigs and
That's the
and
best part of pet
roosters.
ownership, I think. Every time I get a pet, I'm like, I can't wait to name this animal. And I usually wait a day or two because I always feel like the name typically presents itself to you in some way.
That's exactly it. Yep.
Yeah. So when I got my youngest cat, Peter Parker, I had him for about a day and a half, and I was like, who is this cat? What is his name? And I had just rewatched the Spider-Man Homecoming, and Peter's personality was just reminding me of Peter Parker in that film. So it just goes, oh, okay, that's who this creature is, and it just has stuck ever since.
That's exactly how it goes out here. And frequently, we'll get an animal, and then I will turn around and immediately say to Mike, these are their names. And he doesn't really get to say yes or no. He just like, okay, that's their names. So we got our first 2 refugee ducklings this year, and they were 2 orphaned brother and sister. So we called them River and Simon. There you go, right? You've got to know the jokes for all of these, right?
Yep.
And then the next day we were offered these 12 additional ones. So we had to go through and come up with, okay, so now we've got a Mal and an Inara and a Vera and a Book. And so that's it is a lot of fun getting to like honor some of our favorite things. Firefly is something Mike and I bonded over. So he was totally cool with me naming our little flock after them.
Isn't that always great when you find something? Because you could easily go to like Scrooge, Donald, Huey, Dewey, Louie, Mrs. Beakley, Webigail. But I like the fact that you're digging even deeper. You're not just taking the quintessential duck names. You're expanding the duck universe.
Right. And we've had I've had ducks now for, oh my God, 8 or 9 years, I think, that I've been raising ducks. So I've gone through all the easy ones. I had a Quackney and Lacey, and I went through and named one set. They were all named after Beatles songs. So it's getting to where I've had so many animals, I have to dig.
I also like that it sounds like you're not really mining the same territory over and over again, too, for names.
Right. So I don't like to reuse them if I don't have to.
Okay, let's talk about, let's dig into some stuff that's real weird right off the bat. So when one of these animals shuffles the mortal coil, what do you do for them?
So that depends on the size more than anything. A couple of years ago, we lost one of our miniature ponies. She broke her femur. I don't know if she was kicked or what happened, but you can't just pick up and you can't flush a dead horse, basically, right? So we had to go with a loader and dig a big grave for her out in the trees and move her in there with a tractor. So that's what happens with the big animals because there really isn't much of a choice. But then one of our little house cats, who I've had for years and years, passed away recently, and we were able to have her cremated. So she's in a little box that stays with us because she was very, very close to us. But we do have, honest to God, a little pet cemetery out here because that is something that happens. Yeah, more often than we'd like because their little lifespans just aren't what we would like them to be. So we have cats and dogs and chinchillas and chickens and things buried out here.
The bond between a human being and an animal can be just so much greater than people give it credit for. Growing up, we had a Wheaton Terrier named Max, and he was an amazing dog. We loved him so much. And when I was a senior, Max died. He wasn't feeling well, so we brought him into the vet, dropped him off. The vet was like, yeah, we're going to keep him under observation for the night. And he died over the night. Oh. And so it was really sad for us. And so they sent us the cremated remains, and those remains stayed in a sealed black box up in a closet for 4 years. And after my dad passed away, we asked the funeral home, like, would it be weird to bury our dog with my dad? And he said, well, yeah, we'll do that for you, no sweat, but don't tell the cemetery, because they are dead set against having animals buried in the cemetery as well.
Right.
And so we quietly added our dog's ashes so that he could take he could be the companion for my dad. And then we did the same thing with my mom after she passed away. We buried our poodle with her.
Goodness.
So all of, like in another plane somewhere, my parents have their favorite pets with them. So I think that that's important, but I also think it's important, flush culture, I think, is a weird thing where when people have a fish and it dies and the kids get to see you flush the fish down the toilet. I don't think it hurts to bury a fish if you can,
Right.
I don't think it hurts to bury anything if you can.
Well, it's going to depend on the size too. I have 2 big fish tanks. One is goldfish. One is a community tank. And my goldfish are a size. There's no toilet they are going to be flushed down at all.
I don't know. You can flush 10 golf balls down my toilet.
But
I don't want to know why you know that.
It was a selling point on the box when I purchased it. I haven't.
JJ's big on JJ's big on flush rate. He's usually, anytime we've ever gone out to dinner somewhere and he uses the restroom, he'll be like, "Oh, did you see the gallons per flush of this one? It's pretty impressive."
You got to have something you notice when you're in the John, right? I mean,
That's
come on.
right. That's right. Most of all, I noticed the brand of toilet, if it's Sloan. Have you ever seen that one? SLOAN.
Mm-hmm.
That's Irish for goodbye. So I laugh every time. Bye.
If you ever have the chance and you want some amazing Thai food, in uptown Minneapolis, there is a restaurant called Amazing Thailand. Now, you can go there and enjoy a delicious meal. I mean, some of the best Thai food I've had in my entire life. Plus, they have what I consider astronaut toilets in the bathroom. And so you sit down and there's a whole keypad with things that you can choose. And there's one button that says turbo that I've been there with countless guests and no one's had the bravery to push the turbo button yet.
Have you?
So maybe turbo is what you use if you're flushing one of your Tucker's larger goldfish.
There you go.
Being in the middle of North Dakota, which to me is a great farm state, and it's a good ranch state as well. I don't think we're necessarily known for our ranching abilities, especially not until you hit like the far western edge.
Right.
But I imagine the fact that you can take in so many different kind of animals means that there must be enough space out there to coexist pretty easily. Could you describe what the farmstead looks like?
I suppose I can try. So it was an original homestead during the Homestead Act. So we've got the original deed signed by the president at the time. I think it was Cleveland. From before there was even a town here. We actually predate the state here. But so great grandpa A.J. Ford built the farmyard around what was at the time the little gravel road that took him towards the railroad, towards town. And unfortunately, that's now a county road. So our farmyard is split right down the middle by a main gravel kind of thoroughfare for the neighbors. So on the main side of the road, we have the farmhouse, which was built in 1962. I think it replaced the old house. We have the garage, and then we have the big red barn that's been here since the very early 1900s. And that's really where we base our operations out of. Behind that, there's a pony pasture shaped in a big L that goes all the way back into the trees. We do have trees here, which is unusual for central rural North Dakota. Most of the farms around here have been pulling out their shelter belts. We've left ours primarily out of laziness, but it's also really nice to have the trees. So, and then on the other side of the road, I guess we have Quonsets, because my uncles do still actively farm the rest of the 600 acres. And then grain bins and small buildings from when we used to be a big working farm and dairy farm and pig farm back in the 1900 to 1960 about. So it's very old style, very Americana, very not much has changed. We're very much a mend and make do kind of family. So the buildings here are pretty much all original, and the trees are all where they were 100 years ago. They're just taller, and it's very old school.
That's very, very neat. I love hearing about people who have made do without having to tear down a piece of history and then just put something else up in its place. And I know plenty of people who've said, "Oh, I want to move out to the rural North Dakota," and then they do, and all they do is replicate the home that they had
Yep.
in South Fargo.
Yeah. And this is the house that my mom grew up in with. She had 6 siblings. There were 7 of them. So there were 10 people in this house. And you look at it now and it's, how were there 10 people in this house ever? But it's got a lot of the fun old quirks, and we're just patching as we go. So there were new windows put on, I don't know, 8 years ago. It needs a roof now, but it needed a roof for 3 years. So we just put out pans in the kitchen, and rainwater runs in through the light fixtures. So we mend and make do a little too much sometimes.
That's fine. I mean, sometimes that's just what you have to do, right? It's you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You just enjoy and do what you can while you can. I remember our lake place was constant projects. There was never a time when there wasn't something that needed to be done. And even like today, right now while I'm recording this, I'm thinking like, okay, I got to clean out the back bedroom. I need to get underneath the house into the crawl space. I need to finish the master bathroom. I need to, I've got a million projects going on at once, but if I were in your shoes, I would much rather be playing with the animals than doing a project.
And taking care of their spaces too. So, like I said, the barn is ancient. We recently had the electricity updated because every winter we were blowing the power, where it would suddenly go completely black out there and the water tanks would freeze and the heat lamps would go out. So we got the wiring updated last year, but it still doesn't have running water. So all winter long, Mom carries buckets.
Oh, man.
Yeah, buckets of water or hoses from the basement to fill water out there. So it's a lot of that's kind of the same thing, is we make do with what we have, and we don't have that kind of money to put in running water because, again, North Dakota, you really have to dig deep to get it so it won't freeze. So we're just like, you know what, that's fine. We've got hoses, we've got snow pants, it's fine.
How Jessica, if you don't mind me asking, how are you funding all of this?
That is a great question. So, for one thing, we are very, very frugal with what we have to spend on everybody, including ourselves. But we do have several people who have been kind of sustaining supporters, like, say, sponsoring the llama for a year, where they'll send us a check every month for a little bit of money to help cover the cost of maintaining the llama, or the barn cats, or something specific. I had someone send us $50 for naming rights to one of the turkeys.
Oh,
right. I said, that's fine. I keep veto rights in reserve because I don't need a turkey McTurkey face or anything. So that's been good. We have done our GoFundMe, and that's been really well received by people. That's been very helpful. And then anytime I sell anything that relates to the farm, so I make homemade jam, I make homemade tea, things like that grow here, we consider that homestead income. Or if I sell chicken eggs, that's homestead income. So we're about breaking even right now, as long as we don't spend too much on anything extravagant. But we would really like to grow to the point where we can, say, start making payments on a tractor for the yard work and that kind of thing, and for moving feed around. So that's hopefully coming.
I imagine the 501c3 will really help and open opportunities for things like grants or getting in on some of the larger giving cycles and things as such.
That's exactly what we're hoping. Yeah. Yep. We had a number of people say that to be part of their annual giving, they prefer that the nonprofit status be there, which we totally get, or that their employers have a matching program, which is even better. But yep, these things just take time, and we're trying not to be impatient as it gets its way there.
I think that to me, the stress of filling out that 501c3 paperwork and the fact that you didn't stop and you're just, you're plugging along and you're getting it done, it's going to pay off in the long run so much. You're going to be so happy that you did that. And it does really change things, even with people who want to include you in estates and things like that.
Right.
I think that that's great. And I imagine too, if someone wanted to gift you a tractor, you'd gladly take that as well.
Oh, good heavens. That's exactly the kind of thing. So we do have some very generous people who have just given us random things over the last year. We had put out a request for towels and blankets because the best thing you can do for pigs is wrap them up like little burritos. Pigs in a blanket is a real thing. So we need quilts for the pigs all winter long. So people have been real generous with that kind of thing. In-kind donations of leftover food. Our local grocery store has been amazing too. Any produce that they would be throwing out, they just set aside for us, and I pick it up a few times a week. And that's been, I mean, there are times when the pigs eat better than we do because they're getting strawberries and melon and broccoli and all these goodies from the grocery store that they can't sell.
And I'm wondering, if somebody's listening to this right now and they want to get involved and they want to help in some way, shape, or form, what's the best way that they can start that process with what you're doing?
Oh, wow. Well, first, I suppose we have our Facebook page, and that's the best way to know what we're up to. Every day I've been posting anti-anxiety animal videos. So
I look forward to those every day, and they do have that effect, which is very, very nice.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear it. Really, since the beginning of the pandemic, I said, going to go down like the violinist on the Titanic and at least play us out. So, but that's been 3-4 months now that I've been posting these. So,
Right.
So that's a good place to start, but it's also an easy way to contact me. So, and then the GoFundMe is also still active. It's just, I don't remember the URL offhand. So,
Jessica, so I have kind of a line of questioning here about animal friendships. Some of my favorite genres of YouTube videos to watch are like dogs who are welcoming their owners back, coming back from the military, people who buy their parents a house or a car. But my absolute favorite are when two animals that you normally wouldn't think would become friends, become buddies and hang out and become really tight. Are there any really tight animal friendships on your homestead between animals? And like, what are some of those dynamics?
Okay, so the three that jump to mind, our llama, Salvador, and our dog, Boomer, are best friends, which doesn't seem like it should work because one's a prey animal that protects against, carnivores, and then one's a carnivore that should be trying to eat the llama. But they play for hours on end. They have this game where they chase each other around and try to bite each other on the butt. And I don't know. I don't understand all of it, but they are totally best playmates. Nobody else can keep up with them. So the llama tries to play with the goats and they get tired and go off and sleep somewhere. The dog really can't play with most of the animals because he's got big sharp teeth and he's very scary. But so that's one of the best ones, is Sal and Boomer. We have got chickens that follow the pigs around. So each pig has their own little coterie of hens and roosters that follow them. And they, the thing that happens in the savannah where the little birds pick parasites off the wildebeests and rhinos and things? We have something like that. So they're eating ticks off of the pigs. And so that's very cute. And they seem very used to it.
Do the animals kind of create, in a way, like shape their own ecosystem? I'm thinking of Michael Pollan's book about corn, and he visited a farmstead once where they were able to basically use pigs and chickens to sort of create this extra, I don't know if ecosystem is the right term to use, but basically what they would do is the pigs during the wintertime would be in the barn and they would, be going to the bathroom, but instead of scooping it out all the time, what they would do is they would actually layer straw on all of it about once a week, because the corn that the pigs were eating would then ferment in the dung. And then in the spring, when they'd let the pigs out, then they'd let the chickens in. And the chickens would like dig through for like the fermented corn, and they would basically aerate all of the waste, which would then get used for really good fertilizer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is there any sort of like balancing ecosystem going on between the animals there at all? I'm not really. Clearly, I don't know how a farm works, but I'm kind of fascinated with that as a topic too.
So what you'll find is that they will make use of any resource that they have. So absolutely, those same chickens that are picking ticks off the pigs are also going through their poop once they leave it. So that's the other part of following them around is, hey, here's something to dig through. And I don't know exactly what they're eating out of there, if it's seeds or corn or what, because pigs digest a lot like we do. So I think a lot of stuff ends up coming out the other end. But so there's that for sure. The other really nice thing of having so many birds, I think we probably have 70 birds ranging from guineas, ducks, chickens, turkeys. They really do take a big bite out of our insect problem here. So, we're in a very dense tick populated area. Our whole yard is surrounded by a square of trees. So it's just very, very thick insect activity. But you look out and there's birds in lines, just kind of mowing through the lawn, shoulder to shoulder, eating bugs. So that's been a really nice perk. And it's all less protein that we have to provide for them because they're foraging on their own.
What's the like baby pool situation out of your farm? Like, do you have any of those laying around that the animals like to go and slosh around in?
Yes, every year we have to get new ones though because they get pretty beat up. And fortunately, it has been a really wet year. So if the ducks go from the barn and cross the road and down about, I don't know, less than a football field walk away, there's a natural pond for them to go and play in, and good stuff for them to find to eat and all kinds of things there. So otherwise, again, bending and making do. We have a sump pump in our basement, right, to keep the water from getting too high and flooding. And the hose trickles outside and has formed another little natural pond. Now, for the first few months that we had it, it was right underneath our bedroom window, which was fine, except when geese have sex, all the other geese have to yell about it. So geese will only do it in water. So we had these geese having sex under our window and 15 other geese going, ah, 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 ah. So we had to get a longer hose and move the pond further away so they wouldn't wake us up at 3 a.m. having orgies.
I mean, it just goes to show you geese are so much like people.
Yep. All you have to do is give them a cup of water. That's all it takes. And they're like, hey, now's the time.
When I used to have tortoises, I would wake up in the middle of the night to the sounds of my tortoises having sex.
Which sounded like what, Tucker?
So basically, the male, as he's copulating, will bend his head forward and stick his tongue out, and then he'll go. This is the sound he makes. He goes, ah, 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 and that's just the sound. And I woke up thinking, what am I hearing? And this was like I had adopted a family of 6 tortoises, thinking this will be great. And that night I woke up to that sound and I had no idea where it was coming from. And yeah, it was tortoise sex.
Yep. You really kind of get used to but to creatures shitting and having sex all around you. It's just constant,
Yeah, right. I mean, like, you talk about the circle of life, right?
Right.
That is part of. I'm always surprised that they left that out of The Lion King. He explains that we eat the wildebeest, and then when we die, we become the grass, and they eat the grass. At no point is be like, and then we're doing some massive humping here. Oh, and don't forget, we also are going to defecate in the same area where we're hunting. I guess Elton John couldn't figure out how to turn that into a lyric.
And so we have a lot of people come out and visit, and they bring their kids, which of course they're bringing their kids. Kids want to meet chickens and donkeys and all that. But I look around and nobody is behaving themselves. I don't mean the humans. I mean the animals. It's like, could you just not do that for a few minutes until I can get these 4-year-olds out of here? But animals just kind of do what they want.
Yeah, I mean, they should, right? That's that's their right of being animals. Like they're not allowed opposable thumbs, but they can hump whenever they want.
And they do. And the worst problem with that, our llama is intact because llamas are kind of difficult to geld. And he has taken a liking to the lady pig. So he chases a lady pig around, and she's like, "Dude, I am just not into you." But that's a hard one to explain to kids. Like, what is he doing?
Well, you see, when a llama loves a pig.
Okay, so are your pigs like, are they the kind of pigs that are super hairy on the outside and have like they look like cow markings, like with the black spots, or are they all color like the pink piggy that we think of?
Kind of one of each. So we've got 2 Juliana potbelly pigs, and they're kind of your standard potbelly that you think of. And Kevin is kind of a brown with red hair, and Pepper is kind of a gray and black, like salt and pepper, basically. And then we've got this Kuna named Pinky, and she is pink, like sunburns instantly, kind of like my brother because he's a ginger. And so to prevent herself sunburning, she goes and rolls in the mud. And so all summer long, she's not Pinky, she's Brownie. But they're all small sized. They're not feeder pigs. They are still potbelly minis. And they are kind of like elephants, actually. They have thick skin and kind of wiry hair, and yeah, they're so cool. That's something I would like more people to get to experience, actually getting to know a pig, because their personalities are so cool. They're a lot like dogs. They're a lot, actually I think they're smarter than our dog. Our dog is kind of an idiot. But the pigs are actually really smart and funny and clever.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can teach a pig tricks. Like Jill was telling me, what they would do is they would put a treat under a ball so that the pig would come and like move the ball to get a treat. Then they put another treat under it wherever the ball ends, and so the pig learned to roll a ball around the yard.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So okay, so what about this? What about like vet bills? I mean, are you guys trying to Dr. Quinn medicine woman yourself as much as possible out there, or what's going on?
So 2 things there. First of all, yes, anything that's not openly bleeding or having a difficult birth or needs antibiotics, we try to take care of it ourselves as much as we can. So we do a lot of minor fixing. I've kind of sewn up birds before, and we do a lot of fixing of things that happen to feet, like bumblefoot. Anything that we can handle, we do. And then fortunately, we have an amazing vet that lives in town here, and she's one of our board members. So when something comes up that we need help with, that we need eye drops for the kittens, or that we need another tetanus booster for the donkey, we just message her, and when she has time, then yeah, she takes care of it for us.
Oh, so, how lucky are you?
We know. So our bigger expenses are, we buy kind of general feed by the half ton. So we try to make that last as long as we can. And in the summer, everyone is grazing. They're all eating, the produce from the grocery store. And we're trying to give them a nice rounded diet. But in the wintertime, really all they have is this grain. So wheat goes fast.
What, do they get anything, like, do you make a Thanksgiving dinner for all of the animals as well as yourself?
It's a wonderful idea. Typically, no, we keep their diet pretty steady as much as we can. It's better for them not to have huge variety from one day to the next. But
all right, that being said, what about birthdays? Yeah. You celebrate some birthdays?
The ones that we know, we do. It was just Vincent Van Gogh's birthday a couple weeks ago. Nice. I really rely on Facebook to tell me in my memories, like, oh, hey, look, it's the gotcha day for the goat, or it's, oh, hey, we got Kevin today a year ago. So, but it's all gone so fast. A year ago from today, we didn't even have pigs, and now taking care of pigs is a big part of my everyday.
I think a lot of people who are like me from the city, their knowledge of pigs pretty much comes from what Babe and Charlotte's Web. So
are you seeing a pattern here with JJ?
Yeah. I mean, probably I was raised by television and movies, but I mean, there's some truth in them. I'm asking, do you have, or what about this? What was the name of the Pee Wee Herman movie? There's a farm, Big Top Pee Wee,
Right.
where he has a farm and he grows himself a hot dog tree.
That's
I
pretty
think-
accurate. Sure.
I think the thing that I think about the most is how much of your day is dedicated to creatures that can show you so much affection but can't outwardly say I love you.
Oh,
And I'm amazed by that, because there are days where I'm like, oh, I just don't want to walk the dogs. I don't have it in me. And you can't say that. You don't get the privilege of being able to have a day off. I imagine even when you are sick,
Yep.
there are
Well-
still all of these animals that need to be cared for.
there is no such thing as a sick day when you've got animals. So yeah, I've been to the barn with the flu. I've been to the barn with my back out. Mike's been out there with a broken foot. It's just, we just do what we have to do. The only time that we delay chores is lightning storms, because you don't want to be out there holding, metal buckets in the rain and the lightning. So sometimes they get put off to morning if it's lightning. But no, we go out in blizzards and 100-degree heats, and yeah, it's just not a question, you just do it.
So could you ever take a vacation? Like, could you ever go? Like, what happens if someone calls and they're like, Jessica, great news, I'm getting married and I want you to be the maid of honor. But it's in New Pebbleford, Minnesota.
That is a really good question. Mike and I have got it down to where we can each go somewhere, but we can't go together, basically. It would be so hard to explain to someone else how to do this, because you're basically a zookeeper for 20 species. I think I will have to teach someone at some point, because I would like to be able to go, visit family or travel. But at the same time, I have my own health issues that staying home is really a good thing for me too. I have food allergies and that sort of thing. So they're actually a good excuse to be like, I'd love to go to your wedding, but
well, that's very interesting. So really, you've brought the world to yourself in the idea that you've included all these animals so that you don't have to worry as much about the outside world. So really, I mean, it is a completely symbiotic relationship in some senses.
hugely. Yeah, I've been saying for months that, sure, I keep the animals alive, but it's mutual. They get me out of bed. Yeah, they keep me going.
What animals get to come inside the house?
Well, let's see. The ones that are in the house now, the dog, 3 of the cats are indoor outdoor. The chinchillas are full-time indoor because they will disappear, and the gecko. And then our absolute smallest chicken, her name is Hey Hey, and she was a Fargo resident who, lived in an enclosed area in Fargo. But we took Hey Hey outside here, and the barn cats immediately tried to eat her because she's the size of a pigeon. So we have a house chicken full time. So she gets to wander around in here. And then the ducks and the chicks and anybody who gets sick or injured. So our bathroom is kind of a revolving door ICU, where right now it's got babies, but a few months ago it had a duck that had rickets, and before that it had a chicken that had wry neck. So they come in when they need the extra care and warmth and kind of stability or isolation, really, from the other animals.
Jessica, with the ducks, is the goal with them to basically get them to maturity and then release them, since they were already just in the wild? Or would they probably, I know birds will imprint and will sort of sometimes can stay in a certain area, but what do you think happens with the ducks once they become adults?
That is such a good question. We will just raise them as best we can and make sure that they get plenty of time outdoors to learn how to forage and learn how to swim. And then it's kind of up to them. There's water right nearby. We have the one pond, but we also have a bigger body of water nearby. So if that's where they end up, that's awesome. And if they want to stay here where there's food and protection, that's awesome too. We're not, we kind of let them do them.
What about a raccoon? You guys thought about having a raccoon, or has anyone brought a raccoon to you?
Did you not see my pictures?
Oh, I have not.
Yeah, we did. We had a baby raccoon for a week just last month. So raccoons, of course, are considered noxious species, and we have had to kill a few here because they were living in the barn, eating the chickens, eating the eggs. But at 10 o'clock one evening, it's New Rockford, so my fifth cousin, or my mom's fourth cousin, I think, called and asked if I would take this baby raccoon in. The mother had been killed, and then they found the baby. So I was like, you know what? That's not something I can say no to. So yeah, we hand raised this baby for almost a week, and then got a chain together to transport him to a rehabber in Minnesota. Because North Dakota, I guess, is the last or one of the last states that does not allow wildlife rehabilitation, even in certified facilities. So we had to kind of sneaky with him and get him safely out of state.
Really? I didn't
Yeah.
know that was a thing. That's interesting.
And that said, even the ducklings we have now, technically, I don't think we're supposed to have them, even though they were actively being eaten by seagulls before we got them. So it's a really weird thing. And like I said, I work for an attorney. I work with the law, and there are times when the law is wrong, and you have to do what you think is right.
Yeah, I'd find it hard to turn away any creature in need. Even
Especially
like
babies. Yeah.
yeah, right? And I mean that's tough. We are but when you think about it, like we're a very agriculture based state in North Dakota. And so of course they want what's best for their farms and their ranches. And until we figure out a way that a raccoon can operate a combine or help like milk a cow, it's going to be seen as a pest, even though I think that they are just amazing creatures and they're so incredibly intelligent.
Yeah, you would have loved getting to meet Dean. He was that was our baby. He was Dean. He taught me so much about about animals and about raccoons just in the few days that we had him, just by the way he interacted with us. He was really amazing.
Where did the name
Jessica-
Dean come from? Just real quick.
Well, two things. Dean Koontz.
Nice. I love
Yes.
it. I love it.
But then also it was a side homage to Supernatural, which is, of course, I'm a huge fan. So he was our little Dean Winchester.
Jessica, do you have like relationships with other animal rescues or places that might specialize? There's one particular one that I follow on YouTube called Save a Fox, and I believe she's based out of Minnesota somewhere in Lakeville, and she saves foxes from fur farms. Right, so she's very, very specific. I'm assuming there are other rescues out there that might be very specific too. But is there like a network of animal rescues that are able to sort of coordinate with each other when it comes to things like capacity, or say someone comes to you and goes, "Hey, I've got a fox from a fur farm," and you're like, "I can't take care of a fox in North Dakota, but here's someone in Minnesota who can," or like that.
So there absolutely is, and some of it is very open, and some of it is very quiet. So, for example, we don't generally take in dogs and cats. Dogs, of course, because we have all the birds here, they have to be trained for birds to not injure them. And then cats, we have our barn cat, but they're a pretty stable population, and we try not to do in and out too much there. So fortunately, of course, there are facilities that do just dog and cat rescue. So we do contact them whenever we need to say, we have had someone offer this dog for surrender, and we'll send them, to another facility. But as far as the trickier stuff, I mean, yeah, we do know of the rehabbers in Minnesota, and sometimes, they aren't supposed to take animals from other states. So it is really a matter of kind of skirting and getting
Right.
the animals to where they need to go. It's not like an underground railroad. I would never say like that, but it's that sort of, how can we get you to safety without causing any additional problems for people or costing people their licenses.
I'm always a big fan of people following their passion. And so Jessica, it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing is you're following your passion. And again, let's remind people, like, if they want to check out what you're doing and all of that cool stuff, or, you know, I suppose if someone was like, hey, I would love to do a photo shoot and take my senior photos with some ducks,
Mm-hmm.
they could maybe donate and then get a duck photo or two. Yeah, maybe.
Absolutely. So some of the things that we do specifically here, and again, if you want to contact us, Hawks Homestead on Facebook, it's HAWKES is the best way to find us. But we have done Zoom tours for college professors and Girl Scout troops. We have done school tours, you know, small groups coming through in person and meeting everybody and kind of doing that educational side of this is how you take care of a chicken. This is, you know, what donkeys are saying when they put their ears back, that kind of thing. We have taken animals in to visit Fourth Corporation, is a community-based center for adults with developmental disabilities. We've taken our animals there to meet the residents. We've gone to the local nursing home, same thing. So we have ways of doing outreach that way. But we are also here able and welcoming to do things like weddings. I'm actually an ordained minister, but who isn't anymore, right?
Yeah.
So, but we
Very
could
true, right?
Yep, we could absolutely do weddings here. And we have had photographers come out and just catch the animals being animals, again, with a very rustic backdrop.
I think that is such a cool idea, and what a great way to bring things from the last centuries into our current century. So what a cool thing. Jessica, thank you so much for making some time for us. I'm sure that there's plenty of geese out there trying to interrupt you right now by honking around watching what could only be described as goose pornography.
Indeed.
And a series of other animal things that are going on around you. So we know how precious your time is. Thank you so much for carving a little way for us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And just like you said, it is getting to do what I'm passionate about. The old question always is, what would you do if you didn't have to work? This is it. And I'm doing it, even though I am also working. So every person that supports us, whether it's a like on a picture or sends us $1 or comes to visit, that all allows me to do this. So really, it's all about them too. Very grateful for all the support, including from you guys. So thanks so much.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. I do a really good impression of Templeton the Rat from Charlotte's Web, the Paul Lynde one. Here it goes. What kind of a word would you like, Charlotte?